my days are spent sitting on the couch, waiting for something, for someone to come out. I feel my belly growing, I feel my arms getting fit.
The issue of this bill about the police having access to the registry, I felt like that issue was kind of resolved. There was a specific question and answer that went on between Representative Brown and the Michigan State Police representative, where they said, well, what would you do in this situation if you had a tip? And he said, we'd go to the door and we'd knock on the door, kind of suggesting almost that they had a procedure in place, and if the tip didn't hold true, then they would, the person wasn't interactive with them, they would then go and get a search warrant, almost as if he was stating, well, we don't necessarily have to have access to the registry. We can have a chance to go knock on the door and give them an opportunity to consent or let us know that they're a patient, as one of the, so how's that working? How are people in the committee reacting to that whole privacy issue? Is this something that the Republicans especially are finding to be are a little hypersensitive on, or do they not see the concerns of the patients?
Well, I don't want to try to explain other minds, and I like the fact that testimony was given, but that is just one law enforcement officer, and we all know that different police forces will act differently. So the agreement was kind of made right there in public that to go from reasonable suspicion to probable cause would be a good compromise, and I believe the end bill will say probable cause, which puts it at the same level of a search warrant. So, I think that.
I appreciate your efforts on that. I feel like there's an administrative way, but we've already discussed that.
Yeah, there's still no teeth to this thing. What do they do when they find out that this is a medical marijuana patient? Do they stop the raid?
Yes, they. No. What do you mean with this the procedure?
When they come up when they find out it is a medical patient, a medical situation, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to change what they're doing?
Presumption of innocence.
They should get a warrant.
All of a sudden, they're supposed to a fresh warrant issued instead because there's a new set of circumstances we weren't aware of. Should require a higher level of warrant.
I wanted to ask you, I know when we first met a while back, you agreed with me that there had been very, very little, if any, education that had been offered to the law enforcement community, which made things very, very difficult for them, but also obviously much more difficult for patients who were on the receiving end of them not being educated about medical marijuana. One of the questions that was posed to the state police by Representative Horn, I believe, was what's the Michigan State Police position on usable material? And their response was that they didn't have one. This
right.
is 4 years into the law, and they meaning, how many patients have asked for what are we supposed to do? What we have an idea of what usable material is.
How do we label things?
How do we label things? At what point are we going to be subject to our overages when you know that there's a drying factor that goes on and a curing factor? And they took the position that they didn't have one. This is you see wherein much of the problems lie. There's been
that there is a way to grow outdoors according to the law, but they have not been forthcoming with any guidelines.
That was my next question. There was, there's in my client, a couple of clients of mine would be very angry at me if I didn't ask you about the outdoor grow question. What's the thoughts on that from your perspective, and then what's the feedback from some of the other representatives?
A lot of representatives are relying on the Court of Appeals and, enclosed, locked, closet-like conditions just says in the House. My bill says, enclosed and locked, but I envision, open fencing on the top of it. I think Rep. Irwin is going to propose an amendment that I will be fully in support of, which will flat out state that it can be grown outdoors under certain conditions. So we'll see when that amendment is brought forward. I haven't actually read it, but he and I have talked about it because I have said that that is one of the priorities. I mean, think of the vast land we have in this state. I live in Redford and grew up in Detroit, and it's far different than the UP and other different areas of this state that are just completely wide open. It makes no sense to
A
grow in your
roof is
basement.
senseless.
Well, bravo to you for being bold enough to take on that issue, and to Rep. Irwin as well.
Thank you.
Will that happen regardless of how this case turns out in People versus King? Meaning, is the desire of the legislature, are you know, regardless of what they say, you know, prepared to?
That is my desire.
All right.
Because it was said early on in our work group that let's just wait for the courts to decide. And I have an uncle who's a justice, a brother is a court of appeals, a younger brother who's on the circuit court. I said I chose the legislature to, you know, set the guidelines, and the court interprets that. So why are we waiting for the court system to make law? I said, look, it's demanding clarity, and that's why I gather a paycheck, is to add that clarity. I'm trying to get it right.
On kind of a sore subject, I know that you guys have confronted the administration, Laura, on both the new condition panel and also on the printer, and I know that Laura has also made public statements about the implementation of the new card printer, and those, I think we're easing right up on those times, and I was wondering if you know anything about what's going on there.
Not necessarily, but I do know that some of my Republican counterparts put in the word privatization just to make sure that Laura was held to a standard. I honestly don't think they want to go that route, but everybody sees that Laura needs to be doing a better job.
Yeah. What did you make of the testimony of the representative from the Michigan Department of Health who thought that the language in the act did not authorize them any authoritative, you know, review power over the certification process of the physicians? What was his name?
The Michigan Medical Society?
Colin
Ford.
I'm sorry, yes. He, you know, because the discussion came up about the Lara memorandum.
Basically saying that the law didn't give them the ability to sanction doctors for any of their behavior past the certification process, while we have just discussed here amongst ourselves that the doctor really should only have interaction with the patient or be required to have interaction with the patient during the certification process.
And they also, the memo itself sets out guidelines for how to do it. And isn't it true that by the mere fact that they set guidelines, they're an agency that oversees physicians, and now that they've implemented some you know, regulations, aren't they then subject to review before the, you know, agency that set the guidelines if it's warranted?
I believe so.
They are really, though, the law does provide that they only have a certain ability to sanction physicians that engage in this behavior, and that's there on purpose. I would agree. And we don't want to allow them to sanction physicians beyond what the law allows them to do.
And we certainly shouldn't sanction them specifically for acting on medical marijuana patients any differently than they would if they were recommending any other substance as well.
Agreed.
What are we supposed to make about? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, ask your question. I just I need to bid adieu pretty quickly.
What are we? Thank you, and we can. And I again appreciate all your time. What are we supposed to make of all the quiet people on the right-hand side of that committee? What are they doing over there? Are they really listening and just not commenting? You know, we noticed all the discussions and topics and engagement seem to come from your side of the.
Rep. Heisey was the only exception over there that was vocal on that side.
And this may be my rose-colored glasses, but this is how I'm reading my caucuses, and the feedback I'm getting from Rep. Horn is that people realize that we put a lot of work in the last 7 months, and they are going to honor that work and not try to second-guess or pick apart what we've done. So I just attribute that to confidence, that there's a lot of other issues that the legislature's taken on, so they're kind of giving Rep. Warren and I some deference. I may be dead wrong, but there's my rose-colored glasses.
Very well.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to thank you again for being a champion for us and coming on the show and really keeping us informed of what's going on and also giving us the opportunity to engage in the debate and be part of the process as well. We really thank you for your time and energy and your service as a civil servant. Thank you very much, Representative.
Well, that's very, very kind, and thank you guys. I mean, I've learned a lot through the process, and I've learned a lot about the process. So I appreciate it. And have a good night.
You too.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Right.
We'll talk to you soon.
I feel my belly growing. I feel my arms getting